Since its inception, one of the key points of playing Pokemon was to catch them all, even though it was technically impossible in Red and Green. The main point of Pokemon was to try to get as many Pokemon as you can, and even today it's still encouraged to collect every Pokemon as you can get some cool rewards from it, whether it be a shiny charm or just some random certificate. But I wondered to myself, is it possible to collect every Pokemon? How many Pokemon games would I actually need to get every Pokemon? Okay, so to answer this question, I need to lay a few ground rules first. Now imagine this scenario where you're trying to self-obtain every Pokemon on your own. That means trading with other people is not allowed unless it's with an NPC or yourself. However, playing with other people is an option. Secondly, I'm not gonna go over limited time events for Pokemon you can't get in the game normally. For example, the only way to get Darkrai and Scarlet and Violet was through a limited time mystery gift event, which is long gone at this point. If someone wanted to collect every Pokemon right now, it's impossible for them to get a Darkrai and Scarlet and Violet. I'm also not gonna include Pokemon Go for this, besides an exception. And finally, I'm gonna count up the total amount of Pokemon games you would need to spend on to see how much your wallet would be crying. Anyways, let's get into it. Okay, to start off, we actually need to start with Scarlet and Violet as they currently have the most Pokemon obtainable. There are 733 Pokemon available in Scarlet and Violet. However, not all of them are available to catch. You see, there are Pokemon home transfer Pokemon that you can get in Scarlet and Violet but aren't actually catchable. As for the home transfer Pokemon, in Gen 1 we have Mewtwo and Mew. For Gen 3 we have the Reggie Trio as well as Jirachi and Deoxys. In Gen 4 we have quite literally every single legendary and mythical Pokemon. In Gen 5 we have the Genies and Keldeo. In Gen 6 we have the mythical Pokemon. In Gen 7 we have Cosmog, Cosmoem, and Magearna. And in Gen 8 we have most of the legends minus a few and other Pokemon like Zarude, Ursaluna, Sneasler, and Weirdeer. If we take out those Pokemon, we're left with a total of 689 Pokemon to catch. As for the price, because they're DLC version exclusives, you're gonna have to get Scarlet and Violet and their respective DLCs for each game, which the total amount comes out to $190, which is a hefty price to start. Now for the next game we'll look at is Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Now in this game we're going to pick up 146 Pokemon, which is basically every Gen 1 to 4 Pokemon that isn't in Scarlet and Violet. Some of these Pokemon include Mewtwo and Mew, the Reggie Trio, Jirachi, and you might as well just pick up the box legendaries while you're at it as well. And yes, you need both versions of the game because version exclusives exist. That puts your total to 835 Pokemon. As for how much we're spending $120 for both Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and an additional $60 for either Let's Go Pikachu or Eevee because we need that game in order to get Mew in BDSP. You also need save data of Sword and Shield for Jirachi, but since we're eventually just gonna play through Sword and Shield, there's not really a need to count it here, so our total money we spent so far is $370. Yikes. Next up is Pokemon Legends Arceus. Now this is one of the more simpler collecting quests we'll get since it's pretty straightforward for the most part. Now here, we'll literally pick up every Sinnoh legendary and mythical minus Dialga and Palkia. We'll also pick up the Genies as well as Weirder, Ursaluna, and Sneasler. So our total Pokemon we have now is 854, and as for our total price, since Pokemon Legends Arceus is a $60 game, our total now is up to $430. And finally, we've reached Sword and Shield. Now this is where things start to get interesting now. Now we have to pick up 146 Pokemon here. Now here's the thing, you only really need to buy the DLC of either Sword or Shield and not both. But that would mean we would have to play through the game with DLC twice and the game without DLC only once. But here we can get Keldeo, the Gen 6 legendaries, the remaining Gen 7 legendaries, the Ultra Beast, and the remaining Gen 8 legendaries, which puts our total now to 1,000 Pokemon exactly. As for the total price, we bought the DLC of one of the games and not the other, so that's $150 right there. And add on to it, our total price is $580 we spent so far on Pokemon games. which is kinda sus. But that means, out of every Pokemon that exists, 97% of them are available to catch on the Switch, which is crazy to think about. You know what else is crazy? You not subscribing to the channel, as less than 2% of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. And if you think you're subscribed, double check to make sure you're actually subscribed to the channel. I also have a Discord server if you want to join it. The link will be in the description. But anyways, back to the rest of the video. Now this is where things really take a turn. Now starting with Pokemon Crystal on the 3DS, we can get Celebi here, but it only really depends if you have Pokemon Crystal before the eShop shut down. But that's an extra Pokemon off the board, but an extra $10 spent. Next up is Ultra Sun or Ultra Moon, as we only need to get one of them. Here, we're gonna get Furfrou and Magearna, which is an extra 2 Pokemon off the board. From what I saw off of retail prices, Ultra Sun and Moon go for $35 on average. Next up is Pokemon Go, and here we're going to pick up Meltan and Melmetal as they're available to get in Pokemon Go and nowhere else. But because Pokemon Go is free, our total money spent remains the same. Next up is Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Here, we're going to pick up 2 Pokemon to get. One of them is of course Deoxys, and the other one is Spinda. Actually, Spinda is in BSP, but it's unobtainable to transfer out of those games into Pokemon Home. But as for the price, Oras on average goes for roughly $30. Finally, we have Pokemon Black and White. Here, we're gonna get our final 10 Pokemon. Here, we get the Patrat line and the Elemental Monkeys, but we can also get Victini and Genesect here by using the DNS exploit. However, it may or may not be available to you depending on the type of Wi-Fi you have. And as for the price, these games go for roughly $70 on average. And that's the most amount of Pokemon we can get. Out of the 1,025 Pokemon, 1,014 to 1,017, at most of them were obtainable to catch, which is 99% of the Pokédex. But what Pokemon are we missing? Well, the Pokemon we're missing are the mythical Pokemon that currently aren't obtainable to get in the game. The Gen 6 mythicals, Zarude, and Marshadow, and Zeraora are all unobtainable at the moment. However, Walking Wake and Iron Leaves were limited time events, and thus there's no way to get them right now, so that means they're also unobtainable at the moment. As for our total money spent, so in total we spent $725 on Pokemon games in order to try to get every Pokemon. That's like half the price of rent right now. But anyways, that's gonna do it for today's video. This video was long to make and a lot of research was put into this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, join the Discord, and comment down below how many Pokemon games do you own. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.